The rain hadn't stopped all day in Brussels. It washed the cobblestones clean, blurred the neon reflections in puddles, and beat against the NATO headquarters like an impatient hand demanding entry inside. The air smelled of old coffee and burning circuits, screens glowed with maps, troop movements, and coded transmissions, the heartbeat of the alliance. But buried among those signals, one man saw something no one else dared to see. Adrian Cole. Mid-30s, intelligence analyst, the kind of man who blended into the background, a brown hair slightly unkempt, wire-framed glasses catching the glow of the monitors, the quiet hum of a mind working 10 moves ahead. He wasn't a soldier, not a spy, just an analyst. But tonight, that would change. Adrian leaned closer to his screen. A fragment of data pulsed against the flood of signals. A ghost transmission, out of place, stitched into NATO's encrypted traffic. At first glance, meaningless, but to Adrian, it was a thread, and when he pulled it, the whole fabric began to unravel. The numbers formed coordinates, the coordinates mapped to a remote airfield in Eastern Europe, and the name hidden inside the packet chilled him to the core. Project Iron Veil. He whispered it aloud, as though speaking the name would make it less dangerous. It didn't. The room around him buzzed with laughter and chatter. Officers moved between desks, trading jokes, sipping coffee, their trust in the system absolute. But Adrian couldn't hear them anymore. The deeper he dug, the worse it became. Bank accounts tied to shell companies, arms shipments routed through classified channels, and worst of all, internal orders signed not by generals, not by politicians, but by a council he had never heard of. The directorate. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just corruption. It was control. Wars sparked and ended not by governments, but by an invisible hand moving pawns across continents. And now, he had touched it. Cole. The voice jolted him back. It was Lieutenant Briggs, tall, broad, the kind of officer who believed humor was a weapon. You pulling another all-nighter? Careful, man. You'll start seeing ghosts in the code. Adrian forced a smile, minimized the screen, and muttered something about system diagnostics, but his chest was tight because Briggs was wrong. The ghosts were real. That night, Adrian didn't go home. He stayed alone, long after the lights dimmed, with only the rain tapping against the windows. The further he traced, the more he realized what he'd found wasn't a leak. It was a pipeline. A hidden artery feeding power and blood to something vast, something that lived in the shadows of NATO itself. He saved the files to a secure drive, slipped it into his pocket. His reflection in the dark glass looked back at him, pale, afraid, but resolute. He whispered, almost to himself, "This isn't analysis anymore. This is war." And somewhere in the city, as if the shadows had heard him, a pair of eyes watched from the rain-soaked street below. Cold, patient, waiting for the order to strike. The Iron Veil had noticed. Morning came grey and heavy, as though the city itself carried a secret it couldn't bear. Adrian Cole sat in his small Brussels apartment, blinds half drawn, laptop glowing on the table. The secure drive sat beside him like a live grenade. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. He replayed the files again and again, arms shipments disguised as humanitarian aid, generals receiving payments from accounts that didn't exist, and that name repeating like a curse in the metadata, the directorate. He poured cold coffee into a chipped mug. His hand trembled as he lifted it. That was when the phone rang, not his mobile, not his office line, the landline. No one had that number. Adrian stared at it until the ringing stopped. The silence that followed was worse. He shoved the drive into his pocket, slipped on his coat, and stepped out into the damp streets. The world outside felt different. The faces on the tram seemed sharper, eyes lingering too long. Every reflection in a window looked like a watcher, and somewhere deep down, Adrian knew the truth. They had seen him. At NATO headquarters, the mood was unchanged. Coffee, chatter, screens glowing with their endless streams of data. But Adrian noticed things. Subtle shifts. Briggs didn't meet his eyes this time. Two security men he'd never seen before stood near the elevators, whispering into earpieces, and in the server room, someone had already accessed his terminal. He opened it. The logs had been wiped clean. The ghost transmission was gone. His chest tightened. Someone inside had erased his discovery, which meant someone inside was part of it. He was no longer an analyst. He was a threat. At lunch, he walked into the city. Cobblestones slick with rain, tourists huddling beneath umbrellas. He forced himself into a cafe, sat by the window. He needed to think. He needed a plan, but before the coffee even reached his lips, he felt it, that presence again. Across the street, a man in a charcoal coat leaned against a lamppost, cigarette burning low. Nothing unusual, except he hadn't moved in 20 minutes. His eyes never left Adrian. A hunter, waiting. Adrian's pulse roared in his ears. He dropped a few coins on the table, stood, and slipped into the crowd. The man followed. The chase began subtle. Adrian wove through the winding alleys, past fruit stalls and newsstands, each step faster than the last. Rain slicked his hair, blurred the world into a smear of color. The footsteps behind him kept pace. He turned a corner. Another. Faster. His lungs burned, heart hammering. The city was a maze, and every turn tightened the noose. Finally, he ducked into an old library, tall doors, heavy with history. The smell of parchment and dust swallowed him whole. He pressed his back to a shelf, gasping. The man entered seconds later, scanning the aisles. Adrian's fingers brushed the drive in his pocket. He had no weapon, no training. Only fear and instinct. The man's shoes clicked on the marble floor. Closer, closer, until Adrian Cole. The voice wasn't harsh. It was quiet, urgent. Adrian froze. The man stepped into view, removing his glasses. His face was older, scarred, but his eyes carried the weight of a soldier who had seen too much. "My name is Marcus Voss," he said. "I know what you found. And if you want to live, you'll come with me." The library's silence pressed against Adrian's ears. Dust floated in shafts of grey light, ancient shelves standing like grave markers around them. Marcus Voss didn't lower his voice. He didn't need to. He looked like a man who had lived too long in the dark, broad shoulders beneath a worn coat, hair gone silver at the temples, a scar dragging across his jaw. His presence alone seemed to bend the air. Adrian's throat tightened. "You've been following me." Marcus's eyes flicked toward the door. "Not to kill you. To keep you alive. The Directorate has already marked you." Adrian swallowed hard. "The Directorate, you know about it." Marcus gave a grim nod. "More than I'd like. And if you want to survive the week, you'll shut up and walk with me. Now." They moved through back streets, Marcus leading with the confidence of a man who never once looked lost. Adrian stumbled to keep up, mind racing, rain soaking into his coat. Finally, they ducked into an abandoned tram depot, rust eating at its beams, graffiti marking its silence. Marcus lit a lantern that painted the shadows orange. "Talk," Adrian demanded, breathless. "Who are you? Why were you following me?" Marcus sank onto a crate, the lantern glow deepening the lines on his face. "Once, I wore the same badge you do. NATO intelligence, deep field. But I went places you haven't. Saw things you weren't meant to see. And when I tried to expose them, they buried me." Adrian felt the ground tilt. "So the Directorate?" Marcus cut him off. "Not a myth. Not a ghost story. They're the hand behind the curtain. Wars? Stock markets? Assassinations? All of it. They feed chaos, then profit from order. And anyone who digs too deep," he tapped his scar, "ends up like me." Adrian paced, heart pounding. "Then why save me? If they're as powerful as you say, why not let me disappear?" Marcus leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Because you're the first in years to pull a thread they didn't cut in time. That file you found? Iron Veil is more than a name. It's the next stage of their plan. And once it's in motion, nations will fall like dominoes." Adrian's voice cracked. "What is it? What's Iron Veil?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't know. Not fully. But I've seen whispers, enough to know it's not just about politics or power. It's about control on a scale we've never faced. And now, you and we're the only ones who can stop it." The words hung heavy in the cold depot. Adrian laughed bitterly, though it shook with fear. "I'm not a spy. I'm not even a soldier. I read code. That's it." "Why me?" Marcus's stare hardened. "Because you still believe in truth. That makes you dangerous to them. And because the files chose you. Whether you like it or not, you're in this war now." A distant rumble echoed outside. Engines. Tires screeching against wet pavement. Marcus's head snapped up. "They found us." Shadows moved past the broken windows, armed silhouettes fanning across the depot. Adrian's blood ran cold. "What do we do?" Marcus rose, pulling a pistol from beneath his coat, eyes sharp as steel. "We fight." He tossed Adrian a second gun, heavy, alien in his hands. "You wanted answers." Marcus growled, "Time to earn them." The depot's silence cracked open with the crunch of boots on gravel. Adrian's fingers trembled around the cold weight of the pistol, sweat cutting through the rain still clinging to his skin. Marcus didn't flinch. He moved like a predator reclaiming familiar ground, pistol steady, breath calm. "Stay low," he whispered. "And don't freeze when it starts." Adrian's pulse thundered in his ears. "Don't freeze?" "I can barely breathe." The first shot came through the glass. A sharp crack, then a shower of shards raining onto the concrete floor. Marcus fired back instantly, a clean, precise shot that dropped the shadow outside. He didn't shout. Didn't panic. Just moved, 2 flanking left. Marcus barked. 3 coming through the front. Adrian ducked behind a rusted beam, hands shaking as footsteps pounded closer. "Adrian!" Marcus hissed. "If you don't shoot, you die." The depot doors groaned, then burst open. 2 masked men swept in with rifles, flashlights cutting harsh beams across the shadows. Adrian's chest locked tight. He saw the glint of steel, the black void of their masks, the gun swinging toward him. Time slowed. His grip tightened. His finger found the trigger. Bang! The recoil jolted through him. One man staggered back, collapsing against the frame. Adrian's breath caught in disbelief. He had actually hit him, but the second gunman swung his rifle up. Adrian froze until Marcus's shot cut clean through the man's visor. He dropped before his weapon fired. Adrian's stomach churned. The metallic stench of blood seeped into the cold air. He had fired. He had killed. There was no time to process. Marcus dragged him to cover as more gunfire tore through the depot. Sparks burst where bullets struck steel. "Move." Marcus shoved Adrian toward the shadows of the back exit. "They'll flood us if we stay." Adrian stumbled, lungs burning, heart crashing against his ribs. They burst into the rain-slick alley. Headlights blazed at the far end. Another SUV screeched to block their escape. Marcus swore under his breath. "They're tightening the net." "Then what?" Adrian started, but the words broke as more figures spilled from the vehicles. Marcus fired, dropping one, then another. He moved like water, each motion efficient, rehearsed, merciless. "Adrian!" Marcus shouted over the chaos. "Run right. Don't think, just move." Adrian obeyed, sprinting into the maze of alleys, adrenaline burning like fire in his veins. He could hear Marcus's gun barking behind him, hear men shouting, glass breaking, engines revving, then Marcus's voice, sharp as a command. "Rendezvous at the canal. Go." Adrian didn't look back. He ran, feet splashing through puddles, lungs tearing, vision blurring. Every corner turned could be death. Every echo could be an ambush. And then, in the distance, he saw it, the black ribbon of the canal cutting through the city's bones. But so did they. A silhouette stepped out ahead of him, rifle raised. Adrian skidded, heart stopping. His gun was slick in his hand, his mind screaming at him to shoot, to move, to do something. A single shot rang out, the rifleman collapsed. Marcus emerged from the shadows, blood on his sleeve, eyes like stone. "You did good," he rasped. "But this is just the beginning." For the first time, Adrian saw it clearly. This wasn't a hunt. This was a war, and he was already a soldier in it, whether he wanted to be or not. The canal water glistened like black glass under the scattered streetlights. Adrian crouched on the cold stone embankment, chest heaving, his pistol still trembling in his grip. Marcus knelt across from him, blood soaking his sleeve, breath shallow but controlled. He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped it tightly around the wound, his face never wavering. "You froze for a second," Marcus said, voice low. "But then you pulled the trigger. That's the difference between living and being a memory." Adrian swallowed hard, while still clawing at his throat. He wanted to argue, to say he wasn't meant for this, but the truth cut deeper. Part of him had felt alive in that firefight. Alive in a way the sterile offices of Brussels never gave him. Marcus dug into his jacket, pulling out a weathered leather satchel. The buckles were scratched, the edges frayed with years of use. He opened it and slid out a small, battered ledger, its cover cracked, its pages yellowed. "This," Marcus said, "is what got your mentor killed." Adrian's chest tightened. "Dr. Keller." Marcus's eyes flicked up, sharp and unforgiving. Keller didn't just stumble on Iron Veil. He was part of it. Until he wasn't. Adrian's breath stuttered. "What are you saying?" Marcus opened the ledger, its pages covered in careful handwriting, names, dates, transactions. The ink had faded, but the weight of it was undeniable. "These aren't just numbers. They're payouts. Bribes. Silent contracts. Every line ties back to a hand pulling strings behind NATO, behind global conflicts." And Keller, he tried to pull away. He thought he could expose them. Adrian stared at the pages, his vision swimming. His mentor, the man who had guided him through academia, who had taught him the subtle art of decoding patterns, complicit in all of this? No, Adrian whispered. He wasn't like that. Marcus leaned closer, his voice sharp as broken glass. "Everyone's like that when the stakes are this high." Keller thought he could quit. They silenced him. Just like they'll silence you if you keep hesitating. Adrian's fists clenched against the cold stone. "All this time? I thought I was chasing ghosts." But the ghost was Keller himself. Marcus turned the ledger toward him, tapping one entry near the middle. A name, written in neat block letters, Orion. Adrian frowned. "That's a code name." Marcus nodded. "One of the oldest in their network. Orion isn't a person. It's a position. A rotating mantle for whoever controls the funding pipeline. And if Orion's still active, it means Iron Veil is very much alive." Adrian traced the faded ink with his eyes. Every instinct screamed to look away, to let this sink back into the shadows. But curiosity burned hotter than fear. "What do you want me to do?" Adrian asked. Marcus closed the ledger with a snap. "I want you to finish what Keller couldn't." The rain started again, cold needles against Adrian's skin. He felt the weight of the ledger like an anchor in his chest. Keller had died for this. Adrian had almost died for this, and now Marcus was asking him to step fully into a world where trust was poison and truth was a weapon. Adrian lifted his eyes, jaw tight. "If we're doing this, we do it my way. I won't just kill names in a book. I'll expose them." Marcus smirked, blood still drying on his sleeve. "Good. Because Iron Veil isn't afraid of bullets. But they're terrified of the truth." The canal rippled with passing barges. Somewhere in the night, sirens wailed, but they felt distant, irrelevant. Adrian knew there was no turning back. The ledger in Marcus's hands wasn't just evidence. It was a map, and he was about to follow it into the heart of darkness. The city was restless that night. Neon signs flickered against rain-soaked glass, trams clattered across steel bridges, and somewhere in the shadows, men whispered names that weren't supposed to exist. Adrian sat in the back of a beat-up Peugeot as Marcus drove through the labyrinth of Brussels. The ledger rested heavy in Adrian's lap, its cracked leather cover whispering secrets. He had memorized the name Orion, but the other entries tugged at him like loose threads in a tapestry. Where are we going? Adrian finally asked. Marcus's jaw tightened. To someone who owes me a debt. And who still has friends inside NATO's black channels. They pulled into a derelict industrial district. Rusting cranes loomed like skeletal giants, warehouses sealed with chains and graffiti. Marcus parked beneath a broken floodlight and killed the engine. Stay sharp. My contact's paranoid. He'll test you. Before Adrian could ask, the shadows shifted. A man stepped forward, lean, wiry, with hair slicked back and eyes that darted like a cornered fox. He wore no uniform, no badge, only a long trench coat and a nervous smile. Marcus, he said in French, voice low. I thought you were dead. Not yet, Marcus replied. But I'll need your help if I want to stay that way. The man's gaze flicked to Adrian. And this one? My partner, Marcus said without hesitation. Adrian stiffened. Partner? He hadn't agreed to that. But Marcus's tone left no room for denial. The man extended a hand. Call me Luke. Adrian shook it, the man's grip cold and trembling. Inside a gutted warehouse, Luke led them past rusting machinery to a back office where a single lamp lit stacks of papers and a battered laptop. Marcus slid the ledger across the table. We're looking for Orion. Luke's smile vanished. He leaned back slowly, tapping ash from a cigarette he hadn't lit. You don't ask about Orion unless you're ready to be hunted. Adrian leaned forward. We're already being hunted. Luke studied him for a long, tense moment. Then he opened the ledger, flipping through until his finger landed on a date. This, he muttered. This corresponds to a NATO procurement deal years ago. Billions funneled into logistics that never existed. Orion signed off on it. Adrian's mind raced. So Orion controls the funding streams. Luke nodded. Orion isn't just a name. It's a ghost account. Whoever holds it has the power to start wars, end them, or drown them in debt. They've existed since the Cold War. Presidents come and go. Generals retire. But Orion remains. The sound of metal shifting outside snapped Marcus to his feet. He drew his pistol, motioning Adrian down. Luke cursed under his breath. You were followed. The first flashbang shattered the window. White light seared their vision, followed by the crash of boots on concrete. Down. Marcus roared, firing blind into the doorway. Adrian hit the ground, his ears ringing. Figures stormed in, black-clad, visors down, rifles barking. Not police. Killers. Luke grabbed his laptop, shoving it into Adrian's hands. Take it. It has the financial trails, you'll need it. A bullet tore through Luke's chest before he could finish. He collapsed, blood spilling across the ledger's pages. Adrian's stomach lurched. He wanted to help, to drag Luke back, but Marcus yanked him toward the rear exit. No time. Marcus shouted. Move! They crashed into the night, sprinting across the rain-slick lot as bullets chewed through corrugated metal behind them. Adrian clutched the laptop like it was his own heartbeat. They dove behind a stack of shipping containers. Marcus fired back, dropping 2 pursuers before the rest regrouped. Adrian's chest burned. His mentor's betrayal. Luke's death. The ledger. The laptop. The name Orion.it all collided in his mind until one truth crystallized: this wasn't a hunt for justice. This was survival. Marcus crouched beside him, eyes cold steel. Now you understand. Iron Veil doesn't forgive curiosity. They erase it. Adrian tightened his grip on the laptop. Then we erase them first. Marcus smirked grimly, reloading his pistol. Careful. That's exactly the kind of thinking that got Keller killed. The safe house was a forgotten flat above a shuttered bakery on the outskirts of Antwerp. The air reeked of mildew and burnt coffee. Boards covered the windows, letting in only slivers of moonlight. Adrian sat hunched over the battered laptop, its fan whining like a dying animal. The glow of the screen painted his face pale as parchment. His hands trembled, not from fear of bullets this time, but from what he might find buried inside. Marcus leaned against the wall, pistol in hand, eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the window cracks. He hadn't spoken in hours, except to warn Adrian once: don't trust what you see. Trust what you prove. The laptop's files were heavily encrypted, a maze of firewalls and false directories. Whoever built it knew the art of digital misdirection. But Keller had trained Adrian well. Line by line, he stripped away the layers. Each crack of the code felt like peeling skin off a secret that wanted to stay buried. Finally, a single folder appeared on the desktop. No name, just an icon of a star. Adrian clicked. Rows of numbers filled the screen: transactions, coordinates, project codes. His breath quickened. Each line was a thread in a web that spanned continents: oil in the Middle East, rare earths in Africa, weapons in Eastern Europe. But one folder inside froze him cold: Orion, active roster. Adrian opened it. Faces appeared, each one attached to a code name and a date. Politicians, generals, corporate magnates. All of them tied to Orion. And then, his blood turned to ice. A name he knew, a face he had seen 100 times: Helena Voss. Adrian's former mentor from the university. The woman who had recommended him for Keller's fellowship. The one who had told him to always follow the numbers, not the stories. Adrian's hand shook so badly he almost dropped the laptop. No, he whispered. It can't be her. Marcus's shadow fell over him. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. Varga. So she's Orion now. Adrian looked up, eyes wide. She can't be. She gave me my start. She believed in me. Marcus crouched, his voice cold as steel. She didn't believe in you. She recruited you. You were supposed to replace Keller. But Keller broke. You didn't. The words crashed over Adrian like a wave of acid. The sound of a church bell tolled faintly in the distance. Adrian sat frozen, staring at her face, memories clawing at him: the lectures, the late-night discussions, the way she'd pushed him to see patterns where others saw noise. All this time, she was shaping me. Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. Now you understand. Orion isn't a ghost. It's a mantle passed from one hand to another. And Varga wears it now. Adrian's chest heaved. Rage and betrayal warred inside him, a storm without direction. I need proof, Adrian said hoarsely. If I go public with this, with just a name and a picture, they'll bury me before sunrise. Marcus gave a grim nod. Then we find the ledger entries tied directly to Varga. Bank accounts. Shell corporations. Orders she signed. With that, you won't just expose her, you'll pull the mask off Iron Veil itself. Adrian closed his eyes, his knuckles white on the keyboard. Helena Voss, the mentor who had built him into what he was the very enemy he had been chasing in the dark, and the realization cut deeper than any bullet ever could. Marcus's voice was steady, unyielding. The question now is simple, Adrian. Do you want revenge, or do you want justice? Adrian's eyes opened, burning with a clarity he hadn't felt before both. The rain had washed Brussels clean by dawn, but the city's heart beat faster than ever. Security checkpoints, convoys, and helicopter sweeps filled the skyline. NATO's annual summit was underway, a gathering of generals, diplomats, and ministers. And at its center sat Helena Voss, untouchable behind layers of protocol and power. Adrian adjusted his tie in the reflection of a cafe window. The disguise felt alien: pressed suit, conference badge, the calm smile of a mid-level analyst. His pulse betrayed him, pounding beneath the polished surface. Beside him, Marcus looked almost respectable in his jacket and polished shoes, but the pistol tucked against his ribs broke the illusion. He scanned the crowd with a soldier's eyes, memorizing every exit. "Remember," Marcus said under his breath, "we don't have to kill her. We just have to prove she's Orion." Adrian swallowed hard. "But what if I can't separate the woman who taught me from the shadow who betrayed me?" Inside the conference hall, chandeliers glittered above a sea of uniforms and tailored suits. Conversations hummed in dozens of languages. The air smelled of perfume and power. Adrian's gaze locked on her instantly. Helena Voss. She stood near the central dais, wrapped in an elegant navy dress, her silver hair swept back in a perfect coil. Her smile was warm, charismatic, commanding the attention of generals who leaned closer when she spoke. For a moment, Adrian forgot the ledger, the laptop, the blood. He saw only the mentor who had once told him, "Truth is a weapon sharper than steel, Adrian. Wield it carefully." But now he knew, her truth was poison. Marcus's voice dragged him back. "She's leaving." Helena moved through the crowd with subtle grace, her aides clearing space without words. Adrian and Marcus followed at a distance, weaving through corridors lined with marble statues and portraits of forgotten war heroes. She entered a restricted wing guarded by two men in plain suits. Marcus muttered, "They're not NATO. They're hers." Adrian's heart pounded as he adjusted his badge, walking forward with feigned confidence. "Financial Division, clearance level 4. She's expecting me." The guards exchanged a look. One lifted his radio. Marcus stepped closer, hand near his weapon, then Helena's voice echoed from the hall behind them, "It's all right. He's mine." Adrian froze. She appeared in the doorway, her eyes finding his as if she had expected him all along. The years melted away. He was her student again, caught sneaking into archives he wasn't supposed to read. "Adrian," she said, voice rich and warm. "I wondered how long it would take before you came looking." Marcus tensed, but Helena raised a hand. "Relax, soldier. If I wanted him dead, he wouldn't have made it past breakfast." Adrian's throat tightened. "You knew." Her smile curved, tinged with sadness. "Of course I knew. You were always chasing shadows, always asking why. I gave you the tools to find the answers. And now, here you are." They followed her into a private chamber, walls lined with old maps and screens glowing with live data feeds. A war room disguised as history. Helena turned, her presence filling the room. "You think you've uncovered something dark and terrible, Adrian. Iron Veil. Orion. But you don't understand." Adrian's fists clenched. "You've been selling wars. Deciding who dies, who profits." She cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Selling? No, my dear. Balancing. Without Iron Veil, the world tears itself apart. Do you think governments can keep the peace? Do you think generals care for stability? No. They crave chaos. We here manage it. Quietly. Efficiently. And yes, profitably." Adrian's voice cracked. "Keller thought the same until you had him killed." Her eye softened, almost maternal. "Keller lost faith. And in our world, faith is survival. I did what had to be done. Adrian's chest burned with rage and betrayal. You used me. No, she whispered, stepping closer. I made you. Without me, you'd still be scribbling equations in some forgotten library. With me, you can reshape the world. Marcus raised his pistol. Don't listen to her. She's playing you. Helena didn't flinch. Her eyes never left Adrian's. The world will never accept your truth, Adrian. They'll call you a traitor, a liar, a conspiracy theorist. But stand with me, and you'll hold the power to decide wars, end famines, crush tyrants before they rise. Isn't that what you wanted? Her hand hovered inches from his. A choice offered, poison wrapped in the voice of a mentor. Adrian's breath caught. His mind screamed one word over and over, betrayal, but in the silence of that chamber, he wondered, was it betrayal or destiny? The chamber's silence was suffocating, the air heavy with history and deceit. Adrian stood between two worlds, Marcus, the soldier of truth, and Helena, the architect of shadows. Her eyes burned into his, steady, unflinching. Adrian, the choice isn't between good and evil. It's between chaos and control. Without us, nations collapse. With us, order endures. Marcus snarled. Order? You mean blood on your hands and gold in your pockets? He leveled his pistol at her. This ends tonight. Helena's smile didn't falter. Pull that trigger, Marcus, and a dozen governments will fall before sunrise. You know it. I know it. The world doesn't run on ballots or borders, it runs on us. Adrian's chest tightened. Each word twisted the knife deeper. He remembered nights in lecture halls, her voice shaping his thoughts, planting seeds he hadn't realized were hers, and now she stood before him, claiming destiny. A thud shook the chamber doors, then another. Marcus's eyes darted to Adrian. They're here. The wood splintered under the weight of a battering ram. Shouts echoed in French and German, Iron Veil's private army, not NATO guards. Helena's voice was calm, almost serene. Decide, Adrian. Now. Stand with me, and I'll open those doors as allies. Stand against me, and you'll die beside Marcus, buried in obscurity. Marcus barked, don't listen to her. Once you give in, you're finished. You'll be no better than Keller. Adrian's mind raced. His heartbeat drowned out the pounding on the doors. Keller's betrayal. Luke's death. The ledger in his bag. Helena's hand outstretched, her eyes full of promise, and Marcus, unyielding, a soldier of principle with nothing left but the fight. The doors burst open. Black-clad figures stormed in, rifles raised, time fractured. Adrian's hand twitched toward his pistol. Marcus aimed at Helena. Helena didn't move, only smiled, waiting for him to choose. The world narrowed to a single heartbeat. Adrian drew, gunfire erupted. The chamber exploded into chaos. Bullets shredded ancient maps from the walls, screens cracked and sparked. Marcus dropped two men with precise shots before diving for cover. Adrian's breath tore in his chest as he fired blindly, the recoil jolting through his arms. One assailant screamed and fell. Helena moved like a ghost, unflinching, walking through the storm as if bullets couldn't touch her. Her guards shielded her, falling one by one, but her eyes never left Adrian. Choose, Adrian, she shouted over the chaos. Choose, and live. Marcus roared, don't give her the satisfaction. Smoke filled the chamber. Adrian stumbled, coughing, vision blurred. He saw Marcus pinned behind a pillar, blood streaking his temple. He saw Helena, framed by the shattered doorway, a hand reaching out for him. His mind cracked under the weight of the decision. He raised his gun, but the shot never came. An explosion ripped through the far wall, shaking the floor, hurling bodies like rag dolls. Dust and fire swallowed the chamber. Adrian was thrown back, his head striking stone. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Helena's silhouette disappearing into the smoke, smiling. When Adrian's eyes fluttered open, he was lying in rubble, ears ringing. Marcus knelt beside him, dragging him up with blooded hands. "She's gone," Marcus growled. But not for long. Adrian staggered, every bone aching, his mind raw. He had been given a choice, and he still didn't know if his silence in that moment had saved him or damned him. But one truth echoed louder than all the chaos: the final confrontation with Helena was coming, and this time, there would be no escape. The ruins of the Swiss fortress smoldered behind them, a tomb of secrets consumed by fire. Yet Adrian knew the story wasn't over. Helena had slipped through his fingers, her empire fractured but not destroyed. And Marcus, blooded but unbroken, dragged him forward. They didn't stop until dawn painted the Alps in crimson light. A NATO convoy intercepted them in the valley, medics rushing to tend their wounds. But before Adrian could catch his breath, Marcus shoved the ledger into his chest. "You think this ends with her running?" "No. She'll regroup. She'll burn the world if she has to. And you," Marcus jabbed a finger at him, "you're the only one who can stop her." Adrian stared at the cracked leather book, its pages heavy with names, accounts, betrayals spanning decades. The power it contained was terrifying. Enough to bring governments to their knees. Enough to destroy Helena, or replace her. 3 weeks later at Brussels, the council chamber was suffocating with tension. Screens displayed intercepted communications, Helena's network pulling strings across Africa, Asia, and South America. Her voice lingered in recordings, calm and venomous, promising retribution. She wasn't hiding. She was daring them to follow. Adrian's hands clenched the edge of the table. "If we let her regroup, she'll build something worse. This isn't about defense anymore. We take the fight to her." Council members exchanged wary glances. Some saw determination. Others saw obsession. Marcus leaned close, voice low but sharp. "Careful, Adrian. You're starting to sound like her." The operation moved fast. Satellite intelligence pinpointed Helena's location, an abandoned opera house in Vienna, transformed into her war room. It felt poetic. Helena loved her symbolism. A stage for her final act. Adrian went in with a tactical team, Marcus at his side. The grand hall chandeliers hung shattered, opera seats burned to ash. Screens flickered with maps, data streams, and encrypted transmissions, and at the center, Helena. She stood in a beam of moonlight from the cracked dome above, elegant even amid ruin, her eyes never leaving Adrian. "I knew you'd come," she said softly, as if welcoming him home, guns raised. Soldiers fanned out. But Helena didn't flinch. "You've read the ledger," she continued, voice calm. "So tell me, Adrian, did it disgust you? Or did it tempt you?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "You see now," she pressed on, "governments don't rule. Nations don't endure. Only those willing to do what others can't. I built the veil to preserve order. And you could lead it." Marcus barked, "Don't listen to her lies." His rifle aimed steady. "We end this tonight." Helena's eyes gleamed. "Do you trust him, Adrian? He's a soldier. Soldiers obey until they're spent, then discarded. But your mind was shaped for this. You belong here. With me." The chamber fell silent. The team awaited Adrian's command. His finger hovered on the trigger, then he spoke. "No, Helena. I don't belong to you. And neither does the world." He fired. The bullet struck her shoulder, spinning her back against the wall. Chaos erupted as her guards unleashed fire. Soldiers dove for cover. Marcus charged, mowing down 2 assailants. Adrian advanced through the smoke, every shot deliberate, every step carrying years of betrayal, loss, and buried rage. Helena staggered, blood trailing, yet her smile remained. Even wounded, she was terrifyingly composed. "You think this changes anything?" she hissed. "I built an idea, Adrian. Kill me, and the veil lives on. Take my place, and you'll see how sweet the power tastes." Adrian raised his pistol. The final shot echoed like thunder in the hollow opera house. Helena collapsed, her smile frozen in death silence. Only the crackle of burning wires remained. Marcus lowered his rifle, staring at Helena's body. "It's done," he muttered. But his tone carried no triumph, only exhaustion. Adrian dropped the pistol, his hands trembling. He looked at the ledger one last time, then hurled it into the fire. The pages curled and blackened, secrets vanishing into ash. Marcus's eyes widened. "You could have dismantled her whole network with that." Adrian shook his head. "Or rebuilt it. No one should have that kind of power." They walked out together into the cold Vienna night, leaving the ruins behind. Days later, reports filled the news: Iron Veil collapsing, its leaders hunted or dead, its grip loosened on the world. But whispers remained. Shadows moved in the cracks. Adrian knew it wasn't over, not truly. Power never vanished. It only shifted hands, but for now, Helena was gone and he was free.